Previously on Forgotten Gear Restorations.
What you're looking at up here is the ripple that's on the Y node. All right, top of the morning, you guys. I stayed up late last night into the wee hours of this morning wrestling with that Supersonic. And sometimes I'm dense. It did take quite a bit of time to get through this thick skull. It did take quite a bit of time. But I finally realized something that was going on at the old Fender factory. When I was comparing the schematic to the actual components on the board itself, it had become embarrassingly clear that the board, the main PCB, was modified, and as it turns out, it was modified at the factory. Because why? Because there were two service bulletins that were issued regarding reverb noise. Now, what does that mean? Well, that means that the amp shipped with noisy reverb, and it took 2 iterations of repair modifications for them to quell that. Though in this particular amp, it wasn't quite successful, at least to my ear. Maybe to like the run-of-the-mill guy who just uses a splash of reverb in the band setting, it's not invasive. But for a guy who has my particular flavor of mental issues, it's just bothersome. So, and I think you guys heard it as well. I didn't capture how many decibels the noise was prior to my involvement, but it's about 50% less now. And here's the core issue of the whole thing. And I'm going to say this and just be completely honest. I'm not calling out Bruce Zinke or any other designer out there who has to work within budgetary constraints. Part of the frustration of being an engineer, and I'm not a designer, I'm an engineer, but I can tell you that part of the frustration that we face comes in the form of a budget. So what are you going to do? They're making consumable products. Fender heard the cries of their people and finally designed and built an amp, the likes of which hasn't been done since, let's get real, since the early 70s. The quality of this Supersonic is outstanding. The construction, the materials that they use, the whole thing, outstanding. But I will say this, Mr. Zinke, I respect your work, but man, you really baked in some flair that didn't need to be there. And it, in the same spirit of every BMW and Mercedes product, ends up causing issues. While it's nice to have and it's nice to be on the bleeding edge of something, putting out a product and having your customer base act as the A/B testers, or having them act as an extension of quality control or R&D, isn't cool, especially given the price point of that particular amp, which at the time was one of Fender's most expensive, and for good reason. It's a nice amp, even as it was with the flaws. It was a nice amp. So, just trying to be real. Some of the issues that I detected before becoming aware of what was, before I got there, the root cause of the issue per the design, I noticed that the grid's reference to ground on the recovery stage was insufficient. It was essentially floating and just acting like an antenna. So I reworked that to be more akin to what you would see in the 60s amps. And it made an appreciable difference. Another thing I addressed was the presence of ripple in the power supply due to the playful nature of the power amp as it was designed by Bruce. Like, kudos on that, dude. Another thing that I came to realize is that the design of the driver and recovery stages are not like the ones in the old classic amps, and that ended up being highly problematic for this particular amp, just being honest. And what happened as a result of that? As a result of that, the administrative burden that was caused by the backlog of phone calls and confused and angry emails via the customer service portal obviously bubbled back up to Bruce and the team over there, to the point where it became an annoyance. And in fact, so much so that Bruce publicly stated he would no longer be fielding questions about that amp and that particular issue, which is not cool. If you create Frankenstein's monster, you should at the very least have a publicly posted FAQ for people that might run into that dude at Costco, which is actually where I'm about to go right now. So that's about it. I don't know how I'm going to weave this rant into the inarticulate blabberings of the wee hours of this morning. But I did have an episode prepared for you guys. I was going to release it around 1 in the morning when I had wrapped up, but I just couldn't do it at the time. And I'm going to see if I could edit this little bit in there. Jonathan, this is for you and for the other techie types out there who may find one of these amps landing on their bench at some point. So for posterity's sake, I'm going to go ahead and post this. And I'll say this, I could have saved myself hours of work with a cursory Google search. Isn't that usually the case? Because guess what? The FSBs were publicly posted. And there was apparently a lot of discussion around the issues on the forums. So, let my mistake not be yours.